Next question was, where was I stationed and deployed to? Well, I was stationed in Maryland during medical school, in Washington State 3 different times, once for my internship training after medical school for a year, and then again I came back to Washington for my orthopedic surgery training, and then I returned to Washington State near Joint Base Lewis McChord over by Tacoma, Washington for the last 10 years of my Army career. And that's where my family and I still live. I also spent time in Ohio and also in Korea, where I served twice. I also deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. What was my daily routine is the next question. Well, most of the time when I was at home in the United States, my daily routine was almost exactly like a regular doctor would be. I would get up early in the morning and go to the hospital and round on any patients that I had there, and then I would either go to clinic or to the operating room depending on what my schedule was. When I was deployed overseas in a combat environment, my schedule may have looked somewhat like that, but it would depend. It was more dependent on what the activity level of the fighting was nearby. Many times there wasn't anything going on during the day, but oftentimes it could be very busy with many people getting hurt and requiring orthopedic surgery care. The next question is, did you serve in a combat situation? Well, yes, I served twice in combat situations. The first time was in Iraq during the combat activities there, and the second time was in Afghanistan while we were involved there. And I'm grateful to say that I served in times when there weren't as many people getting hurt. And I'm always sad whenever anybody has to get hurt because of a difference of opinion or conflicts between countries or people. The next question is, what was the food and housing like? Well, that's a variable situation that depends on where you're living. When you're back home in garrison, not in a training environment or in a combat environment, home life is and food is very similar to what a normal person's life would be like. But if I was deployed, sometimes I would eat in the dining facility where I was assigned, and sometimes when we were in a field environment, we would even eat combat rations, like there's pre-prepared meals that are called meals ready to eat, or MREs, that you could just go pick up out of a box. And they had a longer shelf life, and you had a little heater if you wanted to heat up the food that was in it. I would say that I enjoyed the food most when I was at home. What was the most unique type of transportation I used? One time when I was serving in Korea as a battalion surgeon with an infantry air assault unit, well, actually several times that year, we would transport ourselves in helicopters, and we would practice doing air assault raids on landing strips. And when you conducted that kind of an operation, we would move around to the different locations using a helicopter. The next question was I ever injured? And I'm thankful to say that I was never injured in a combat environment, but I was injured several times in training environments that were more routine injuries, like ankle sprains, shoulder injuries, sprains and strains, and other things. Rarely they required surgery. But I ruptured my Achilles tendon one time also that required surgery. So thankfully, most of the injuries that military service men and women receive while they're on active duty come in training exercises, and most of them don't come during combat activities. What was my least favorite part of my job? Well, besides being away from my family, it was having to go without sleep. There were many times in my training as a doctor and as an orthopedic surgeon that I would be required to stay up late at night if people came into the emergency room who were hurt and they required my care. And even though sometimes I was very tired while engaging or providing that care, the adrenaline of the situation would keep me awake for the times when I was preparing or taking care of those patients. But then when I finished that, I was extremely fatigued and needed several days to recover from those times when I was up all night. What am I grateful for from my service? Well, I am grateful that I had the chance to serve our country and serve with some of the best soldiers and military servicemen and women. I miss the camaraderie or the friendship that I enjoyed serving with my colleagues. I also loved taking care of the men and women who serve our country and put their lives on the line to protect our freedoms. It was a great honor for me to do that. I loved that part of my opportunity to serve the country. I'm also grateful for the amazing country that the United States of America is and the many freedoms that we enjoy, which are not available to many people around the world. And I love that opportunity and that privilege that I had to serve. And I hope that many of you consider to do the same thing at some point later on in your life. Here's one story that I would like to share. And it relates more to my training as an orthopedic surgeon, perhaps, than it does in the military. But it was definitely a part of my experience. One time back early in my training as an orthopedic surgeon, I'd come home late on a Saturday night, and I'd been on call since Friday morning. And I came home and I told my wife, I'm not sure I can do this. And she asked me, well, when did you last sleep? And I said, well, it was 36 hours ago, Friday morning. When did you last have something to eat? Well, again, I had to answer 36 hours ago. It was Friday morning. I'd been involved almost continuously over that 36-hour period, and it was probably approaching more like 40 hours in patient care activities, and I had just not stopped to rest or take care of myself at all. And I had told her, I don't think I can do this residency training anymore. I was kind of a basket case. And she just wisely said, you know what? Let's get you a little bit to eat, see if you can catch a few hours of sleep, and we won't make any decisions on an empty stomach while we're sleep deprived. And that proved to be really wise advice. I got a few things to eat, and I got a few hours of sleep before I was called back to the emergency room. And once I had better taken care of myself, I realized that it was something that I could do, especially with God's help in my life. God bless all of you, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you for this opportunity to share.